It is Thursday. Got another slate of MLB DFS coming up for tonight. A pretty fun slate because for the first time this year, we've got some pretty legitimate dilemmas. Do we go with a guy in Shane Bieber who is just electric coming off this monster start his first time this year in a tough matchup with the Twins? Or do we go with a lower salary pitcher in a great matchup and load up on some strikeouts with guys like Dinelson Lamet or Ross Stripling? Pretty fun slate for today. So let's talk about it and break it all down. Welcome on into the FanDuel Fantasy Q&A right here on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter as we are getting you set for Thursday's main MLB DFS slate. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, here to talk about tonight's slate. If you have any questions, go to YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, wherever it may be. Get those questions in, and I'll try to answer as many as I can on the air for today. As mentioned, the big thing for this slate is trying to decide what you want to do at pitcher, because Shane Bieber, if we're looking at just raw talent, is going to be the number one guy in this slate. Just disgusting numbers. Looked awesome in his first start this year, went 97 pitches, but he's facing the Twins. And as you see on this sheet here, there's a whole lot of red when you look at that matchup with the Twins. So it's a bad spot. Whereas we look at guys like Dinelson Lamet facing the Giants, there's a lot of green in that matchup, but Lamet, 80 pitches his first time out, not as big of a sample of dominance as we have with Shane Bieber. That's a little bit scary. I do like Ross Stripling facing the Diamondbacks. His sample also kind of small, though. We're not sure where the pitch count will be with him. It was 92 last time, but where will it be this time? So that's the big dilemma. Do you want to go Bieber in a tough matchup or go with Stripling or Lamet in better matchups for tonight at lower salary? So plenty to discuss. Get those questions over on YouTube. First question comes from Jason. Do you like Brady Singer as a cheap pitcher? So Brady Singer, in his first start this year for the Royals, we'll pull up his page here over on Fangraphs. He looks awesome. And I think that first start was encouraging. The reason that I'm not in on Singer for tonight is that if you look at his numbers last year in Double-A, didn't get as many strikeouts. And strikeouts tend to be something you can predict based on what a pitcher does in the minors. A 9.8% swinging strike rate in Double-A last year. So unless he's had some obscene major changes, you would not expect that to be a guy who has a 35% strikeout rate in the majors. The matchup is awesome for Brady Singer. He is a legitimate talent for sure, but I don't think the strikeouts are sticky as of yet. So at least for right now, Jason, I am holding up personally on Brady Singer. Aaron is asking, what are your thoughts on stacking Royals lefties, Alex Gordon, Ryan O'Hearn, etc.? So the Royals for today, squaring off, I have it right here, Ivan Nova. Yeah, so Ivan Nova is a guy who you can pretty much stack against regardless, does a pretty good job of limiting hard contact, but as you can see here, just a 14% strikeout rate. That's over his past 24 starts, so a really big sample. He allows the ball in play 80% of the time. You just add, or subtract the strikeout rate and the walk rate from 100%. He allows the ball in play 80% of the time, which is a massive, massive number. We want that for DFS because every ball in play is a chance for a double, for a home run, stuff like that, and that's exactly what we want. So I like the Royals lefties. I am not as into Alex Gordon because the power is not necessarily there, but Adalberto Mondesi is a switch hitter, so we'll get him from the left-hand side. I would include him on that list as definitely someone I would be super interested in. O'Hearn, good batted ball numbers. His results were really, really trashy last year. So I think we should keep that in mind, but 46% hard hit rate against righties, 36% fly ball rate, pretty acceptable. So I can definitely be in there. I'm okay with going the righties, though. Get the power of Jorge Soler. Hunter Dozier's not active. Whit Merrifield, hard hit Whit, definitely okay as well for the steals. So I think with the Royals, the one lefty I really like is Adalberto Mondesi. Outside of that, I'm actually okay going with the righties too, even though Ivan Nova is also a righty. Lane is asking, which combo would you recommend more, Aaron Hicks and Mike Trout, or Michael Conforto and Anthony Rendon? Those are all pretty fun combinations. The one word of caution I would give is I'm not entirely positive that Aaron Hicks is going to play. We have not seen the Yankees lineup yet. Hicks, when he was younger, back in his very early days, was a dude who just obliterated the left-handed pitching, but I'm not sure we've seen him in the lineup as much. against lefties so far this year. So I don't think it is necessarily a lock that Hicks winds up playing today. So that decision could be made for you, and they faced Patrick Corbin. Hicks was not in the lineup for that one. So they may wind up making that decision for you. I broadly am in on the Yankees, and I think that any Yankee is going to be okay for me. Michael Conforto, also facing a lefty in Martin Perez. Conforto, good enough against lefties where I'll use him, but I think I would just see if Hicks is in there because they may wind up making that decision for you. Alvin is asking, do you like the Padres as a stack or for one-off? So the Padres are out in San Francisco. That's probably going to kill most of the appeal for me. Kevin Gausman, like he gets dragged sometime for fairly legitimate reasons because like last year his ERA was like 6 or whatever it was, but his peripheral numbers weren't as bad. He had a decent strikeout rate, 35% hard hit rate allowed. This is over his 13 starts last year before he got hurt. Wasn't that bad? So I think that I would avoid the Padres mainly because of the park. I hate the park. I hate the weather in that park. 61-degree first pitch temperature. There will be very few times, like you could honestly keep a tally of this. Keep a tally of the times on these shows where I recommend you use hitters in San Francisco. You will be able to count it on one hand. You may be able to count it on one finger. You may not even need that one finger at all because I will very, very rarely recommend hitters in San Francisco. So I'm probably not in on I'm not in on the Padres for tonight. Is Matz a good play tonight against the Red Sox? So Steven Matz actually has some interesting numbers. He changed up his pitch mix in his first start this year. He was leaning more on his curveball. I think they said it was because his slider was hurting him, like physically hurting him, which sounds bad. So probably a good thing that he's not using the slider. So when I'm looking at most relevant samples on pitchers, I don't really have a good sample on Matz because there isn't a good sample on him because I haven't seen him this often with that lower slider usage. But if we look at last year, there were 12 starts at the end of the year where it seemed like Matz's curveball use or curveball movement was a little bit different. And if we look at the sample where he, I think, changed it the way he's throwing his curveball, the 13-start sample, 4.13 skill interactive ERA, 24% strikeout rate, and just a 29% hard hit rate allowed, those are good numbers. The issue that I have with Matz for tonight specifically is just facing the Red Sox. Just a 20% strikeout rate for their active roster against lefties. This is now since the start of, I guess actually be tomorrow, but since the start of last year, not a lot of strikeouts for the Red Sox against lefties. So I'm interested in Matz in general, like him as a talent specifically, but I'm not there yet using him tonight against a low strikeout opponent. Jason, do you like Braves stacks tonight? They're facing Ryan Yarbrough, and Yarbrough doesn't get a lot of strikeouts, which is good for us for DFS, but the problem is Yarbrough is awesome at limiting hard contact. 31% hard hit rate allowed. I think this is since he came back up from the minors last year. So a 24-start sample, he's been really good, and the Braves offense has been kind of weird. I think that's the word I would use for them so far this year. So I would probably not be super inclined to go with the Braves, mostly out of respect for Ryan Yarbrough and the work he has done to limit hard contact. He does allow a lot of balls in play. And you mentioned with Ivan Nova, we do want that, but with the hard contact being so low, I am okay not being super jazzed about the Braves. Gold-Blooded asks weather. Weather for tonight, there aren't many things to note. The one thing I would note from a temperature perspective in San Francisco is super, super cold, which is not good for offense. Didn't see any games that stood out as being super scary from a precipitation perspective. Is a little bit there for the Mets and the Red Sox. I think that's about it. So you see the 115-degree temperature in Arizona. They're not going to have the roof open, so disregard that. It'll be close to like 73 or so. But the only weather note that I would note is that how cold it is in San Francisco, which is very bad for offense. Home run calls. Okay, so when we're looking for home runs, we want guys who allow a lot of hard contact and allow a lot of fly balls, but also I don't want them to get strikeouts. That's kind of a big thing too. John Means does not allow a lot of hard contact, but probably not going to go super deep into the game tonight. It sounds like he's on an innings limit, and he allows a lot of fly balls. So if I'm going to make a home run call it's going to be a right-handed member of the New York Yankees. I have not seen their lineup as of yet. If Luke Voigt is in there, because I don't want to go chalk, like chalk is boring. You don't come here for the chalk. If Luke Voigt is in there, though, I'll go Luke Voigt as my home run call for tonight. Mateo is asking, with rain heading to Baltimore, besides the Angels and Kansas City, which stacks do you like? So looking at that Baltimore game, it looks like that game should be okay. At least this is based on dark sky weather, which is where numberFire pulls from. It doesn't have the rain getting there until super late, so I bet that they get that game in. If Kevin Roth of Roto Grinders, who's the guy I read for weather stuff, if he says different, I would trust him. Based on what dark sky weather is saying, it doesn't seem like it'll be a super big issue. So I think the Yankees are in play, and I think that the Orioles are, at least at times, in play too. I do like Kansas City a bit. I like the Angels a decent amount, facing Marco Gonzalez. Other stacks for tonight, I like the Mets. They are facing Martin Perez. Not a big strikeout guy. Has allowed more fly balls recently than he used to. So I would say the Mets would be another team I'd be looking to stack for tonight. Danny is asking, I saw Lamet towards the end of your board, was wondering the reasoning. Oh, okay. So this is a point of clarity, Danny. This is not a ranking. When I have these here, these are just based on like the order of the game. Like this game just starts earlier. So this is not a ranking of my pitchers for tonight. Nelson Lamet's actually my favorite pitcher of the entire slate. So I actually like him a lot. Sorry if this is confusing. I just literally had in the order of the games as they're being played. I could sort it by pitcher rankings, but that would be a lot of work. So I don't do that. But Nelson Lamet is my favorite pitcher for tonight. Really good strikeout numbers since he came back last year. He started mixing in a sinker to try to cut down on the hard contact he's allowed. We look at the 11 starts he's had with more sinkers, still a 35% strikeout rate, 3.43 skill interactive ERA, more walks than you'd like, and his pitch count in his first start was just 80, but tremendous weather for pitching for tonight out in San Francisco, as we alluded to, and San Francisco's offense, 89 WRC plus against righties with a 25% strikeout rate. He checks every box outside of length. I'm a little bit worried that he may get yanked after 90 to 95 pitches. That could happen, and that's a concern, but even with that being considered, Dinelson Lamet is my favorite pitcher for tonight. He is $9,200. It's a good savings from Bieber, better matchup, similar but not quite as high strikeout expectation when you factor in the matchup, just because the Twins don't strike out that much, and that does impact in there. So I think that Dinelson Lamet is going to be my favorite pitcher for tonight. Rob is asking, what's your thoughts on Brady Singer? Mentioned it before. Actually, it was Fangraphs page still pulled up, but Casey listened to the beginning talking about Brady Singer. Really good first start, 17.5% swinging strike rate, but his numbers in the minors don't support that as being the expectation going forward for him. So I want to watch Brady Singer because he was really good in that first start, but I'm not in there on DFS yet, just because I don't expect the strikeouts for him to be as high right now as they were in that first start. Do the weather conditions for the Yankee game scare you? So that's the second question we've had about weather in New York, or in Baltimore, I should say. And again, like I'm seeing here, it doesn't look too bad. Again, I would trust go to Roto Grinders and search for Major League Baseball weather. That would give you a better rate, because Kevin Roth is a literal meteorologist. I'm just some dummy who reads numbers off of dark sky weather. The numbers there say it shouldn't be a big concern. So trust what Kevin says. I defer to him always, but at least just based on what I see here, I would pull up the Roto Grinders page, and my internet gets slow for some reason at times. But at least based on these numbers, I'm not super concerned about it. The other thing I would note, too, is that it doesn't matter as much what the rain situation is with hitters. Basically, with hitters, all you care about is that the game does not get rained out, because if there's a delay, who cares? Whereas with the pitcher, if there's a delay, that pitcher may leave the game, and you're stuck with whatever points he had scored to that point. So for hitters, you just need to make sure that game will be finished. And I think based on the numbers here, at least for that Yankee game, it should finish. And also, really good hitting weather. 91 degrees in Baltimore. The humidity not quite as high as it could be, but that's some dinger hitting weather right there, which is why the Yankees implied total is 6.3, which is just absolutely disgusting. So I definitely do think that the weather in New York is good for tonight. Let's see if their lineup is out yet. It looks like it's not. which is a little bit annoying, but still, they have plenty of time. I think looking at the projected lineup over at numberFire, Luke Voigt, $2,800. He is batting fifth. Gleyber Torres, I was super into him last night. Used a lot of him last night. Gave you a big old goose egg. So some bitter feelings toward Gleyber Torres, but he's likely to bat third, $3,100 with the platoon advantage in I think it's the hottest park on this slate. Yeah, the hottest park once we assume that Arizona will be closed up. So give me all the Gleyber Torres again. If he can hurt me once, he can hurt me again. So let's ride there. I mentioned last night that I wasn't super into DJ LeMahieu, and then he went out and hit a home run in the first plate appearance of the game. So great call there. But this is different because we get DJ LeMahieu, at least for the first couple of plate appearances, facing a lefty. And yeah, the fly ball rate is still lower than I would like it to be, but 30% is not zero, I guess, and a 45% hard hit rate. Second base has been one of the tougher positions for me to fill early in the season, so I do think that DJ LeMahieu at $3,300, I made the mistake of talking him down yesterday. I will not do that again today. So DJ LeMahieu, a worthy part of a Yankee stack. Hopefully they get their lineup in before we close out the show for today. Also mentioned that the Angels are a team that I want to stack. Their lineup not in just yet. Nor is the Mets, I don't think. So basically all the teams that I want to stack for some reason. Oh, okay. So the Mets is in. And the big key within this Mets lineup is this guy right here, Just Dongs Davis. JD Davis batting fourth once again against the lefty. His fly ball rate against lefties not as high as I would like it to be, but his salary is much lower than you would think it would be as well. So you're getting a big trade-off there. And if you use Dinelson Lamet, you may not need JD Davis, but he's $2,400. He is batting fourth for a team I want to stack. I'm going to go all in on JD Davis once again. He makes it really easy to afford Pete Alonso. So I think if you're building a Mets stack, I would say start that puppy with Alonso and Davis and then just go from there. Question here from Dave. Thoughts on Gary Sanchez? So Sanchez is cheap too. I think he's $2,900. $2,900. He hit sixth against, or I think he actually had fifth against the lefty when they faced Corbin. I don't know. Regardless, he was either fifth or sixth, somewhere around there. $2,900 facing a lefty. Sanchez has had some struggles, to be sure, and those struggles, the sample on them is expanding. But Sanchez against lefties last year, a 55% fly ball rate. That might honestly be like too high. He also struck out quite a bit, but I think I think that it's still enough where we can go there. And the thing that Sanchez benefits from is that he's facing a low strikeout pitcher. So Gary Sanchez, really rough start to the year, which is why I'd probably, if you had to pick between Sanchez and Luke Voigt, and they're batting like back-to-back in the order, I'd probably go Voigt over Sanchez. But Gary Sanchez is still someone I'm in on, and I'm very okay going with both of them, one with catcher/first base and one at utility. Josh is asking, hey, Josh, different from our NASCAR talks, but Judge or Stanton? Okay, so we said go. I'm changing my wording because I said straight up I prefer Stanton last night, but I said that Judge was better if you wanted to factor in popularity. So technically I was wrong, but I was also kind of right. If we can all just agree to pretend that the wrong part wasn't in there and just go with the right part, I'm going to go with that. But I think for tonight, I'm going to go back to Giancarlo Stanton. He is I think he's just going to have a good year. $3,800, batting third in that lineup, a little bit cheaper than Aaron Judge, who is $4,100. But honestly, Josh, like if you go Ross Stripling, you can get both pretty easily. So let's say you're stacking the Yankees and you want to get both. I would say Ross Stripling is a good pitcher option. You might be able to get there with Lamet too, because Lamet's not all that expensive. So I would say, Josh, the answer to your question is both. If I had to pick one, I would go Stanton. I have my Giancarlo Stanton Marlins jersey hanging out in my dresser, so maybe I'll plop that on before the game tonight. I don't think it was back when he was Mike. It may be, though. I don't think it's that old school, but it was like the very glittery Marlins jersey. I might grab that because we might need that for tonight. But give me Stanton there. How chalky is a Kansas City and Yankee stack? I'm guessing the Yankee stack will be. I think that like a good rule of thumb, if you want to predict who is going to be popular, is just looking at the high implied team totals. That's why, like, if you look at my sheet here, I don't have any betting info on here because basically, if you follow what the bookmakers are saying, you're going to go where everyone else is going. And I kind of don't want to do that. But I think that the Yankees will be very popular because their implied total is so high. As mentioned, my internet tends to lag a bit when we are doing these streams. So we'll wait for that page to pull up. But with the Royals, I don't think they will be as popular. Their implied total 5.28, still pretty high. I don't think they'll be as popular as the Yankees, but still pretty popular. Yeah, so I think it'll be decently chalky if that's what you're asking. JD Davis leaves games early for defense. Could lose an at-bat. Does that bother you? Yes, Eric, that is very true. But he also came in last night for Dom Smith. I think that was because lefty-righty matchups. So it may also be partly due to other factors. But I think that that's a concern, and it's a very legitimate concern. The reason, Eric, I am still okay with taking him despite that being a concern is that he tends to get at least 3 or 4 plate appearances, batting third or fourth in that order. For his salary with his power, I can forgive that. Now, Eric, if he were $3,200 instead of $2,400, we'd have a very different discussion here. But because the salary is so low, I'm willing to take that risk. But Eric, that's a very good question. It's something we should monitor for sure. Flag guys who leave games early. Actually, Aaron Hicks left a game early a couple nights ago, and I've been all over Aaron Hicks so far this year. So I would definitely keep an eye on that for sure. But I think with JD Davis specifically, I am okay still going there. Home run league, home run free league. Who you got tonight? Okay, so mentioned before, we are going with Yankees, righties. I wanted to go Luke Voit, but again, we haven't seen their lineup as of yet. Voit, they got some injuries last year, but still a 36% hard hit rate, 40% fly ball rate against lefties. If you, Sage, if you're looking for someone who is like less off the wall, then I'd probably go Stanton there because he's Giancarlo Stanton. His numbers last year don't matter because of the injury, but I think that if you want to have some fun, let's party with Luke Voit. Zintech Outdoors says Cespedes Dong. He's already got 2 so far this year, but I think because he has 2 and because he's gotten notice, he's gotten notoriety for those 2 home runs, that's why I wound up going with JD Davis over Yoenis Cespedes because I feel like it's probably going to be a situation. Oh, I put Nelson Cruz in there instead of Giancarlo Stanton. Dummy. Anyway, I'm guessing that Yoenis Cespedes with the name value is probably going to want to be more popular than JD Davis. So I'm okay going both personally because they're both righties. They both have some power. If I had to pick one, I'd go Davis over Cespedes. But I think both are good. In tournaments, last night, San Diego did well. Should we read into that? No. Different situations. I'm assuming you're talking about their offense. It's a different situation. I think that in general, you don't want to read too much into it unless there's like a major change within the offense. Like, let's say they add a really good player. Like Dalton Varsho for the Diamondbacks is not like someone who moves the needle. But like, let's say Dalton Varsho were like the biggest prospect of all time, came up to Arizona and was inserted in their lineup, and suddenly they started to go off. That's a situation where maybe you'd want to reassess. But baseball is a super volatile sport. One day doesn't necessarily translate to another. It's a bad park again. 61-degree temperature, not a great place for offense. Mentioned before, Gaussman's peripherals last year, not as bad as perception. So I wouldn't read too much into it. It's okay to try to, catch on to hot teams, but make sure there is a reason they are hot and that you can allow them to project that hotness to continue going forward. That is all the time that we have for today. Do you want to thank you all once again for tuning in and asking really good questions? Again, you guys, you ask really great questions. It makes my job super easy. Really appreciate it as always. We are back again tomorrow to chat more MLB, 4 p.m. Eastern, right here on the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook pages. So make sure you are subscribed to all of those to get a notification right as we go live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern. If you're playing NBA, make sure you check out the Daily ISO with Tom Vecchio, my coworker over at numberFire. That is on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed, breaking down today's 2-game slate. We also had a betting podcast with Adam Stanko. breaking down betting implications of the NBA bubble and some of his favorite conference outrights for this year as well. It's on the Covering the Spread podcast feed. On the numberFire DFS podcast feed, we have MLB, NHL, NBA. We have UFC with Austin Swaim, NASCAR podcast, back with PGA again next week. So 6 different sports. What more could you possibly ask for? Big thank you to Calvin Theobald, our video producer, from the video side of things here today. Thank you, Cal, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck with your DFS lines for tonight. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. This has been the FanDuel Fantasy Q&A right here on the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook pages.